Star-making moments. Almost everybody that became a star has them. Some of them become stars by winning titles, while others, for the most part in this video, become stars off of some other moments. They go from hot prospect to surefire star after a single moment. Now, some of these are my personal opinion. You probably have some that are different to mine, of course. This is a remake, I should know as well. I made this video in 2019, but I decided to remake it because, for one, I'm busy with the John Cena return video, and I didn't want to ruin the uploading schedule by fully working on that. So I decided, let's do this. That said, let's get into it. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, this one is obvious as day. Steve Austin, fresh off being kicked out of WCW, had this fire and anger to him. He was very bitter with how things went. Because of these elements, it allowed Austin to unlock this whole side to him that nobody even knew about. Enter Stone Cold. Now, even though Austin was in the WWF, he was just a plain guy by the name of the Ringmaster. Eventually, they leaned towards a cold-blooded fighter, and he made up the name Stone Cold. Stone Cold was a vile, often efficient wrestler who almost always got the job done. Outside of the ring, Triple H screwed up and was suspended, opening the doors for King of the Ring winner Austin. He wins the tournament, but his crowning moment wasn't standing with his arm raised, rather the moment where he trashed Jake Roberts and said the Austin 316 thing. This was step 1. Step 2 is a feud with Bret Hart, which led to Austin's career-defining moment at WrestleMania 13. With blood in his eyes, Austin refused to give up and instead passed out, and thus a star was born. More often than not, others say the Austin 316 promo was the launching pad, but it wasn't. Austin was facing Yokozuna on the SummerSlam pre-show and was nowhere to be found at times. WrestleMania 13, though, is the contrary. It turned him to a babyface, and a few months later, nobody was hotter than the Texas Rattlesnake in the company, and even when he was out injured, he was the most over wrestler in the company. In other places, this man was the entire opposite of Stone Cold, a man who was hated for being a goody two-shoes, a person who was somewhat over-pushed to some, Rocky Maivia. On paper, he had it all, the family legacy, the look, and of course the drive. He had a huge debut in MSG and even won the Intercontinental Championship. While those in the back enjoyed seeing Rocky's rise to the top, the crowd hated him. Die Rocky Die was what some were on their signs, but luckily for the future Great One, he was out with an injury, and this provided him with a huge opportunity to unlock his true potential. Why? Because they were allowing him to turn heel. Within months, Rocky Maivia established himself as one of the brightest stars with his impressive charisma and amazing promo skills, and of course he renamed himself to The Rock. He soon started to see himself as the leader of the nation, to the displeasure of Farouk, and after WrestleMania, I'd say his moment came. Now, once again, this is my personal opinion, I feel like this moment showed that Rock had that superstar quality. He already showed a bit of it, but this moment, I don't know what to say. So Farouk had enough of The Rock. He wanted him out of the nation, and all he did is respond with this eyebrow raise. It wasn't his first time doing the eyebrow raise, but this time around, he just looked so commanding, and I always saw it as that moment where he became a star. From here, he shined brightly. He was slowly adding to his character, and it got to the point where the fans couldn't hate him. So he became champion, and the rest is history. Now, you might say SummerSlam 98, this and that, but me personally, I say it's the night after WrestleMania 14. He showed that leadership quality. Just a single eyebrow raise, damn. For this man, he has 3 different moments. You can choose one. Triple H, once a blue blood who was nothing but elegant, Hunter Hearst Helmsley opted to be this rebellious leader of degenerates. As the leader of DX, Triple H found success in many areas, whether it be in the fan reaction, titles, you name it. It got to the point where it was time to go to a higher level, and up to this point, Triple H did have that defining moment, that being SummerSlam 1998, and for himself and The Rock, it was huge, but it was nothing compared to what was to come. After fully focusing on the WWF Championship, the game had a sit-down interview with Jim Ross and just went off about how nobody cared for him when he cared for those same people. And then he said that iconic quote, "I am the game." It's a very huge moment in Triple H's career and showed that this man meant business. They push him, make him champion, but something feels off. I mean, he's feuding with Stone Cold, but he lacked that aura. Enter Mick Foley. The feud with Foley brought the game from one point to another. This came to a head at the Royal Rumble. On this night, Triple H went to war. He brought out that dark side he promised in the build, but on the outside, it was his moment, the moment he became a true star. His rise from breaking free from DX to winning the title was meteoric. 4 months it took him to win the title after leaving DX, but Royal Rumble 2000 was when he truly arrived and was elevated to the highest level in the WWF. When asking somebody in the mid-90s about the potential future stars for WCW, it's highly unlikely anybody mentions Diamond Dallas Page. Now, DDP did have a solid career as a manager in the late 80s and early 90s. He's managed several tag teams and found success, and he had the ability to speak, and along with it, loads of charisma. So he became a wrestler at the age of 36. This sounds ridiculous as hell, but the man had that drive. He had help from others along the way, and if you have a locker room filled with the likes of Sting, Ricky Steamboat, and Ric Flair, wouldn't you feel compelled to work harder? And that's what he did. He had a carny gimmick which found some success, but his true breakthrough was yet to come. And looking at the odds, it shouldn't have happened, but as DDP says, he's an anomaly. After getting enough money from a benefactor to return, DDP and storyline gained momentum, enough momentum to be scouted by the NWO. And it seemed like he was joining the group, but on one particular night in the Superdome, he decided to make himself a star. How? By dropping both Hall and Nash. The stadium went insane because, for one, the NWO was always gaining the upper hand on others. You know, the baby faces were always getting jumped, so for them to see DDP strike was something special. He exploded after this, and it also helped that he had this long-ass feud with Randy Savage that brought out the best in DDP. This also eventually led to him winning championship gold and being one of the hottest wrestlers of the late 90s. This moment in itself, I'm not the only one that shares this opinion that he became a star here. DDP himself shares this opinion because he had never been this over. The fans are going crazy. He turns face. He gains this momentum. It was a great thing for his career, and it led to him feuding with Randy Savage and becoming the world champion, so it was nice. At the turn of the millennium, WWE began to work harder on the next generation of talent. OVW was expanding them despite most of the roster acquisitions coming from ECW and WCW at the time. This was coming to an end because both companies were purchased, so you saw some young talent burst onto the scene. One of the most notable talent was Randy Orton. Why? Because he was 22 years old, he was a second-generation wrestler who had an extensive knowledge of the business. What's there to dislike? So Triple H took him under his wing. Orton found some success as IC champion, but as you know, Mick Foley came in. He gave him two memorable, and in the second match's case, iconic matches. Now to this point, everyone knew Orton's talent, but they didn't see this side of him. He came into Backlash, took all these spots such as the thumbtacks, led more than Ric Flair, okay that's a lie, and gained more respect from the fans of the guys in the back. It's always the first match I think of when hearing star-making performances, because it was exactly that. The man that came into that match turned into a whole other person, a person that was ready or almost ready for the top. Regardless, one thing that's for sure is that Randy Orton was a made man after this. In the effort of establishing someone, the star might have to hop some hurdles. Sure, they got the talent, but do they have the patience? Do they have to deal with the backstage politics? Whatever. CM Punk comes to mind. He's been at the top before. The man was a main eventer for a bit and even main evented SummerSlam in 2009, but since then, he was never at the top. It's not like he was a jobber, far from it. If anything, Punk was closer to the world title than he was to the US title, but he was getting frustrated. Days, months passed by, and he's just unsure if they're going to elevate him higher again. His first title run was overshadowed. His second featured the best work of his career, but he had a problem with suits, and it had an underwhelming ending. So WrestleMania 27 passes by, and he's thinking, oh, I'm leaving. I'm not going to extend my contract. They give him one last program with John Cena. Little did everyone know that this one promo he cut led to his star power skyrocketing. Now, I doubt this promo would have the same effect today, but back then, it was huge because not much was happening in WWE, and very rarely would you see something controversial like this promo was. There was the Nexus thing the previous year, but whatever was happening was normal in the wrestling world. This was certainly different and provided CM Punk the benefit to go on top. His impact from the early 10s is definitely memorable, and it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the pipe bomb. Because at the end of the day, that was something huge at the time. Around the same time period, a certain somebody was doing nothing. Daniel Bryan. Bryan was well known outside of WWE for being a world-class wrestler. Doubts about his WWE run were of course there, but he found some success winning the US title. Then from out of nowhere, he won Money in the Bank, and even then, some thought he was going to be the first man to fail to cash in the briefcase. Why? Because he was the ultimate jobber. This man was losing almost every match he was in, despite being Mr. Money in the Bank. And at TLC, he just won the title. Out of nowhere, no one expected this because, well, he was losing all the time. But then WrestleMania 28 happened, and it inadvertently turned out to be Daniel Bryan's blessing. Why? Well, at this point, the fans in Miami were going crazy with the yes chant, and Bryan losing caused the fans to go harder on the yes chant. Take that moment away, and who knows? One thing that's for certain is that WrestleMania 28 was one of the most important nights of Bryan's career, even though it didn't seem that way at the time. It was a blessing in disguise. Often than not considered the forgotten member of the Four Horsewomen, Becky Lynch. Charlotte is Charlotte. Sasha was always in the big picture. Bayley had some big moments in her early days, and Becky Lynch, it seemed like she peaked too soon. Now, Becky was popular with the crowd. She wasn't the ultimate jobber, you know, the ultimate jobber or anything like that, but her booking was odd. She was losing a lot of feuds and just floating around without much going on. Hell, a lot of people considered her the female Sting for being so gullible and being betrayed so often. Her moment to challenge for the title once again involved Charlotte at SummerSlam, and she turns heel. Why? Because Charlotte wins the title. Although in everyone's mind, she's a face now. They haven't won the title. As time goes on, she slowly transitions from a bitter person to somebody who thought they were untouchable. Hell, she even called herself the Med. At a moment's notice, though, Nia Jax broke her nose. This seemed disastrous, but then this brought an iconic image of Bloody Becky. There's not a lot of moments in the past 5 years of WWE that I would consider iconic, but this definitely has to be. With blood drawn, a broken nose, a bruised eye, Becky Lynch became a star. Huge moment. Iconic image. I just can't sell it enough. From here, she turns face and WrestleMania 35 happens. Obviously, they had to involve Ronda for it to happen, but if you won the title at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if Ronda Rousey was in it or not. So, Becky Lynch was probably going to become a big star. I don't know if she was going to become as big as she was, but one thing that's for certain is that that blood, the image of her bleeding, really elevated her. Alright, so that's moments stars were made in WWE. I wanted to remake this video for a while. These are my opinions, you know, some of you guys are going to be like, oh, The Rock didn't become a star like this. But I perceive them to have been elevated in these moments, so I hope you guys can understand. If you guys want me to make up moments where stars were almost made, you know, we could talk about like Braun Strowman flipping the ambulance, Ryback attacking CM Punk, you know, stuff like that. Maybe that could be a good video, but yeah. Alright, that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the GTS on the like button and perhaps the RKO on the subscribe button. Peace, I'm out.